Hi, so today we have with us Sarnath Banerjee, who's written this absolutely fantastic Absolute Jafar. So, hi Sarnath.
Oh, hello, Manjula. So nice to talk to you finally.
Yes. So, we'll go straight to the book. Tell me, just a general question. How did you start doing it? Wow, how do we, like, how long have you been working on it? Because, of course, it's like a memoir in a graphic form, right? Almost. One can read it like that, one doesn't have to, you know. So,
Yeah,
talk about that.
I was forgetting. In the first years after moving to Berlin, which is around 2010, I would I was looking at to keeping an eye on Delhi, almost like a kind of son who has moved away and keeping an eye on one's parent,
Hmm.
checking the weather report, checking the AQI, like worried about friends and the kids mostly, not so much the friends.
Hmm.
Uh, so there was this sort of just feeling of like being there from outside, like micromanaging a city as if the city cared from Berlin in -11. So and then I would just sort of turn a street in like in the Mitte or in Schöneberg, and I would feel like "Acha chalo, I think I'm kind of closing heading towards Sundarnagar, comparing constantly cities and its ghosts and its spectrality of Berlin and Delhi, and then this happened first 2 or 3 years, and then slowly the other cities started taking over, and the childbirth and just sort of day to day existence. I was sort of slowly forgetting how I felt
Hmm.
on that particular afternoon in Babar Road in audiovisual studios going towards refugee market or towards Triveni to have Shami Co-op with Sudhir Dar. I was
Hmm.
forgetting all these things, and these sort of not the big things, but the smaller things, how I felt, what it felt
Hmm.
like, what did a
Hmm.
torpid afternoon in Delhi feel like, what if an evening of going out and thinking something's going to happen, but also knowing nothing's going to happen. What did it feel like? What did it feel like to kind of drive around Delhi in the darkness and it looked like Congo, and the only place where there's any light was outside Safdarjung Hospital. Yeah, so I was feeling. So I just wanted to kind of record all that, not from a memoir. What was the word you used? Memoir. From a
Memoir.
memoir point of view, but
Hmm.
more as a kind of a reporter or a kind of reclaimer of these fine sense gestural sensibilities. And before I would forget, because I'm getting old and I'm forgetting.
Hmm. You're not that old, you know, but
Yeah, it's
yeah, but forgetting, every time, I mean, even when you're in, say, Delhi or whatever, whichever city that you're living in, this thing, I mean, while I was reading it and I got this thing, yeah, you're trying to like hold on to the feelings that you felt at, specific times. But even when you're in a specific place, you're still forgetting, right? So this fight
absolutely.
against forgetting, that's what struck me most about this.
Yeah. Yeah, true. It could also happen. Another thing that happens when you're in that geography location, it's not as if you have to migrate or go somewhere else to start forgetting things.
Yes.
That what happens then is blindness. A
Hmm.
blindness with Paul Nash talks about, blindness of the obvious, kind of lack of enchantment,
Hmm.
of like not knowing how enchanted the place can be. And Delhi
Hmm.
people have always been very good at like keeping this self-enchantment machinery on. Because we don't have a sea, we don't have Howrah Bridge, we don't like our city does not have those things. So we have always used our own imagination to make the city into this sort of magical place. But we have our like monuments, we have like several generations, like as old as Damascus. I
Yes.
mean, so you and it's got gins and stuff and all. So you it can so one thing that happens, though, good thing, when you move away, that blindness goes away. So every time you crave for a city, the pure pleasure and the joys and the food and everything, which you can only crave when you create a distance between that city. So I guess it kind of helps in a sense. And what it does do is that it keeps stops you continuously to become blind to your own city, and to kind of keeping on re-enchanting it, enchantment, to stay
Mm,
enchantment. I mean, a lot of my very successful older friends who are still extremely successful in whatever Nobel Prize winner type kind of people, one thing I have noticed about them is that they have this remarkable childlike ability to be keeping on excited about what they do. You know,
mm,
into
mm,
cutlet until the end.
mm, mm.
And that into cutletness is taken over by a kind of a jadedness, a kind of the here and now, and the kind of anyway, our countries have made us ballerinas. We are always on our toes, like waiting one catastrophe. We're constantly catastrophizing. Ab ye khatam hua to what is the next big thing is going to happen? What other wonderful policy they are going to come up with, which we have to now deal with? So there's no sukoon, there's no, and then there's this stress of the digital world, this constant need for upgrade and optimization. So it's like a horror story. So in the middle of all that, how does one key hold on to these fragile emotions, which
Mm.
previously we could, you and my, this book is for our generation. It
Yes,
is
yes.
it is not meant for anyone else. It's a highly localized group of people of of certain cities of a particular age, or children of like modernity, Mila Jula, uncertain modernity, all kind of memories of being from the third world, all NAM child, non-aligned movement, of a great
Yeah,
confidence and great akkar to to face directly, eyeball to eyeball to your English professor in Britain and say that, boss, please, nobody wakes up feeling post-colonial in India. Third world, but confident,
mm,
khuddari.
yeah,
Khuddari was there, but also kind of comfort in this sort of, our third worldness. Shift, rich country, .com, lot of money, global travel, confidence, arrogance, you know,
yes, yes.
and underconfident. Arrogance is always a sign of underconfidence, So I'm talking only to my generation, boss,
Mm,
and that generation is not restricted to India. That generation is restricted to, not restricted to global South. You find people like that in Pakistan, Turkey, Istanbul, Berlin. We are a very silent, quiet group of people, but we know each other. We follow each other. We're not in the digital world, but it's for them.
mm,
And yeah, and the next generation, of course, if it is at all worthwhile for them to kind of read about the local and what produced them, because now generations end within 5 years. So
yeah,
all their heroes and villains and cultural whatever markers are all within that 5 or 6 years.
yes.
So people go out of shelf and irrelevant very quickly.
Mm,
um so what was lucky for us, because uncertain and generation not very willful either, we had the boomers before us, and we
mm,
also had lovers who were millennials and bosses also. I'm talking about
mm,
Gen X. We had
mm.
bosses. I had all my bosses were millennials, and
Really?
then, well, young publishers, bosses meaning what? Like people who are
Uh-huh.
in positions of authority. So
Yeah.
a comfortable with authority of someone who's like 10, 15, 20 years under us, which boomers would not take very well. At the same time, having the most, so like a large landscape of influences and people and places, like a large world that you inhabit.
Mm.
The subsequent generations are getting shorter and shorter. They can't relate to anything outside that world, and there's no intergenerational conversation. So, but there are within that group also there are people who want to know how did we arrive,
Yes.
because the younger generation often think that they've invented the wheel, which is great. Live with that thought that I've invented this form, auto fiction or whatever, and new words they come up with, and they believe, they convince themselves that that is what, but then no, it's not. I think we also did it. We also thought that, man, a graphic guy wrote a graphic novel. I mean, found out that Bengal, Kerala, whatever, they've done like ton of shit like that.
Mm.
So humility a little bit, and so but a lot of younger people are reading it as well because it's on migration, and the
Yes.
protagonist is a Gen Alpha guy with whom I can
Yeah.
discuss from divorce depression. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. And I loved the bits when I was reading it, and I didn't know the thugs. I mean, I haven't been to thugs in years. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, it's shut down, you know? So, there were things like that. And of course, every,
Volga,
yeah,
Volga.
yeah.
Once we knew, Indi Hajra and I were like, we used to know those places. Alka Hotel is still there. These architectural stuff, local, comic book writers, we only do local shit. Whether it's Berlin, whether it's Istanbul, whether it's Bosnia, wherever it is, the idea is to get to the local, not go for the most lowest hanging fruit that some influencer has talked about and chalo wahi motu ka jalebi khayenge. No, the
Uh-huh.
inventing those things, the joys of invention, the pleasures of invention, of like finding whatever this, like, suddenly somebody discovered that, "Hey, you don't know this place in Paharganj. They make the best whatever chole bhature." You know, so this discovery was very much part of our world because the world we were discovering and we were not digital. Um, and we were forgetting. Now, Volga, do you remember how it actually felt like when you walked in Volga, how it smelled like? It smelled
Mm,
that air conditioned and ice cream mixed together with a bit of
mm,
sweat.
yeah.
And yeah, so, or like, kind of Claridge's, which you could not afford, but you could afford to have a pan outside the Claridge's hotel
Uh,
person.
uh,
Now, we have this in Delhi, right? People have the same kind of these notifications in Pune or in Bombay or in
yes,
Berlin or in,
yes,
Shanghai.
yeah.
And we're all linked to each other through our locality, which does not make us like parochial, which makes us
Mm.
like, sensitive to people and their relationship with their geography.
Hmm. So, how did you work this out? The structure is just flowing. I mean, it feels like that, but clearly, you must have gone through many iterations. And, there's the
Oof.
Delhi part, and then there's the Berlin, and then there's the father and son, and the marriage. So, all that, you know, and of course, the border, cross border thing, and the bureaucracy. So, I was like reading that, especially the bureaucracy, but I had no idea. I mean, obviously, unless you go through it, unless you have, somebody you're in love with somebody in Pakistan, you don't know what the couple goes through. And
Hmm.
what you've documented is like, it's so bizarre. So talk about that first.
So that's why I mean, comics or literature or whatever, we get into the interior world. We
Yes.
get into the extraordinariness of the interior world. This sort of, life of others kind of a thing. That strange and enormous desire to kind of know what happens behind those white curtains in Algiers, where a small family grows up. That's why we read comics, or literature also. We want to get into the internal world, the humlog
Mhm.
of Algiers,
Yes.
or Casablanca, like deeply internal world, like you want to kind of, belong somehow to that world, and that's why we read. That's why we read. Cinema does not give you that much of a stronger. Cinema is the director decides how long you watch
Yes.
whatever you watch for. TV sometimes does. So it is unpacking. It is inviting or inviting the reader to kind of enter those worlds through their own imagination, because comics is a medium of not saying.
Mm,
You say amount you say is much less, is one fourth of what you want to say and what you don't say. Basically, the silence is what do you call that? Silence is the mustard oil of comics. If comics was Bengali cuisine, um, you can't do comics without silence. And so it's like trying to sort of put to create a psychological state, a theater, for you to enter Jaisalmer house, to enter a night where a father just puts their child to sleep and steps out in this -4 and standing in a bus stop waiting for a bus to go back to his own house. This is a post separation situation, leaving a warm bed. and then sort of thinking that everybody who's standing in that bus stop, which is about 2 or 3 people, are probably all people who've like just put their children to bed and going back home to their own place. So, you know, these are deeply felt thoughts and deeply experienced this thing, and it's almost impossible to communicate those things to another person, but one can try only to kind of bring them closer. It is entirely like Manjula's imagination of what she makes out of those bits of drawing and both those bits of text and put them together and make a cinema in your own head about what
Yes.
is happening. Um, so, to answer your question, the organization happens quite naturally if you do it musically,
Mm.
compositionally, and in my case this would be Indian classical music, and or the raga, or the rasas, like the bhayankar. Now this is all I'm saying after having written the book. It was not that
Mm.
I'm going to make a bhayankar rasa
Obviously, yeah.
chapter 3 followed by an adbhuta. Anyway, the whole book is a little bit of Adbhuta and Bhayankara and like a kind of a little bit of Viraha thrown in and some Shringar to kind of make it beautiful. So this, yeah, this is like your recipe for the book. But yeah, so there is a tonal universe. There is music in my head when I'm writing, like the pieces about like the man walking through the streets of Japan, Tokyo. There's a music that is working out, in the early morning when the child wakes up and goes to school, and all these dark thoughts kind of, comes into the character's head, financial insecurities and stuff like. It is a book for like literally for people like us. It is not a book for life. It is basically about ordinary people. It is not about celebrities. It is not about exceptional people, because if you notice that media sphere is all about exceptional celeb. Even you saw literary festivals,
Yes.
the push and the uh, desire for celebrity is just so strong. Getting to know the lives of celebrity. Even normal people want to become celebrity so that their lives are sort of noticed, because ordinary life ka to kuch hai hi nahi. And this
Mm.
typically happened in entertainment, which you couldn't understand, and typically happened in sports, I guess. We all had celebrities, but this obsessiveness with celebrity is just quite a shocking thing in the world of. I saw it in Calcutta first time. This sort of from like influencers to food bloggers, the new celebrities, so to say. The people who act in serials and all fine, fine, fantastic people. I can understand the celebrity need for that, but writing is just the book should be there at bookshops.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
all. But no,
And also,
ordinary lives.
when you're talking about ordinary lives, I'm thinking that, as a writer, I mean, a lot of really good writers don't want to be celebrities, right? But now in this current world, it's
Yeah,
becoming like, the writer has to push themselves, you know, and that's become a part of the writing job.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. It has been
bizarre because,
legitimized.
yeah. So how does that? I don't know. How does that affect the writing? Because if you want something that's like really solid and deep, I think this is like bullshit. It kind of
Yeah,
takes away from that, no?
yeah. Well, but Penguin taught me to have a large circle of friends so that more books get sold. So I became very social in my life. So it has had a positive. Penguin marketing team had a positive effect on me. कि बस दोस्त बनाओ और किताब बिक जाएगा. दोस्त ही तो खरीदेंगे तो कौन खरीदेगा? So Corridor sold and it's still selling. So clearly there's a lot. But they're real friends, are not like Instagram followers. But to for a serious answer to your question is that yes, it is now mainstreamized that you have to put whatever comes your way, you have to share it, because otherwise, not that the publishers or my agent force me, but I realize that they are happier when I do it, so I do it now. I mean, I select.
Mm,
So if there's like 10, I would do 5, half half.
mm,
Um, uh, how does it affect writing? And this deep writing is not like a virtuous, great activity that requires like,
No, but
kind of
it
pulling.
requires introversion, now for serious writing.
Yeah, it
If you're
requires you
constantly,
to.
I keep wondering, even I go to literature festivals, and I keep wondering, okay, this person writes so well, but what's happening? I mean,
Yeah,
he or she also
like
has to perform. So
yeah,
how does it affect it?
performing. Yeah,
You know?
performing one's wit and one's charm and one's beauty.
Yeah,
um these are become very kind of part and parcel, and your charisma, how you are charismatically talky or whatever you are, decides how you sell, and all that kind of, these things were there also before, but of course in a different way. I mean, Indo-Anglican writers are full of good looking people, but uh, um, yeah, but but uh, but the counterpoint to that is, um, you are saying that it might actually hinder. You need a certain amount of moving
yeah.
away from society to kind of keep right. I think they all have figured out different ways of doing so. Like in my case, I live in Berlin and I live a very quiet life, very domestic, lots of friends, picnics, raising a child, cooking for him, very sort of quite normal existence in Berlin, and that gives me enormous amount of time. I don't necessarily want to be productive, but I want to be sort of distant enough to kind of do that sort of stuff. So there are strategies to kind of come pull yourself out, but because comics is very labor intensive, extremely
Yes.
labor intensive. And it's very hard on a summer day in Berlin to kind of sit in your house and do comics. So I kind of take my work outside. I sit in a park. I've got several designated areas in the woods near my house where I sit and I work, because I work everything I like, only the very last minute I do anything digital, but everything is hand, paper, whatever. So I take everything out, spread out, and work. And people come in between. So I also work with like people coming in, chatting, going away. I keep on working. So I'm a very distracted worker also. Um, because it's all a lot of joy. I want to, like, now my first priority in life is pleasure and joy. Everything I just want
Mm.
to do is I want to get a lot of joy out of it. And what you're saying potentially takes joy out of one's situation, that you have to go and do all these festivals, you have to meet all
Yeah.
these people and all that. Where is the
Yeah.
joy? But you have to do it. You have to. There's no other system, and authors do it because they are told, or we don't know yet, there's no research, that this is the way you can keep a book relevant, because everybody's fighting against relevance. The
Mm.
big battle right now, and I thought it was just because just me, because I'm a older middle-aged man, but relevance is, people are doing all kinds of strange things which they would never do. Yeah, even like people who are otherwise very quiet and live quiet lives up in Himalayas or whatever, they are pushed into like this sort of situation because people want to be relevant. But why
Mm.
do people have to be relevant? It's all right. You produce something, you have a lot of joy for 7 years that you produce something. It stays for 6 months. You slip into memory. I think we have to work all these things out. We have to emancipate ourselves to saying that it's just a book. It'll die. It's like one of my characters, goes, tries everything to make his book relevant, like tries Dalit, tries Muslim woman, tries kind of being called out. All Nothing works. His book sales go down and all, and then he goes to the publisher and says, and the publisher is built somehow around my friend Ravi Singh, and he goes to the publisher who looks like Ravi Singh, and he says that, Ravi, say for example, my everybody wants my book, but my books are out of stock. And the Ravi Singh character says that, you know, pets die. I think as we are getting older, we should also like sort of train ourselves a little bit from this sort of need to be continuously to be relevant. You will be relevant to a smaller group of people in any case. It's fine. No, one should not get anxiety over this.
Mm. Mm.
Easier to
Okay.
tell though.
Yeah. Than to actually.
Hmm. Not like something coming out like, Al Jazeera is asking for an interview, like, that requires you to like go back to Berlin very quickly and like get your British visa done and like get your ass in like London like for 2 days. I rather go back and just like chill. And then you say like, no, middle class boy, right? This big event, might like shoot me up in like sort of global scale. Kind of, I should do it. Maybe, perhaps, you'd end up doing it. And you're like, sitting in a flight to like, you're getting off at Heathrow in like taking the Piccadilly line and saying, like, why am I here? You know, life is full of
Yeah.
these contradictions, and it's fine. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I kept, when I was reading it, I don't know, it's just me because I know some of the people, I feel like I know some of the people, and I'm wondering, like, I'm like looking at that person, is that, this is Annie, right? Annie
Yeah.
Matthews. Okay.
Yeah. Although I drawn her differently.
You've drawn her differently, but
It's
it is
based
her,
on yeah, our friend
Yeah.
Annie. Yes, the
Yeah.
Annie was the tal keeper. Like in music, there's a tal
Yeah.
person or a beat or a drummer or somebody who plays the upright bass. Keeps the bong
Mm.
bong bong sound in jazz composition.
Mm.
Annie, I felt if Delhi was a choir, and
Yeah.
all of us were member of this gigantic choir. Uh, uh, Annie would be the person who was keeping the whole act together. The basic tune, the basic tone that mm, uh, the 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 basic notes upon which you can lay out
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
beat keeper, the keeper of the beat of the music uh, of the city. And after Annie passed, I feel the city just sort of started, for me at least, definitely becoming very different.
Mm.
And the great and the good of the city. It's almost like symbolic, obviously not just because of Annie, but it felt that the city, for no, not just from us, but for a lot of people who are friends of Annie's, which is a
Yes. Yes.
large
It's
number
a
of people.
large,
Yeah,
large number of people.
yeah, yeah.
I'm sure. Did other people also recognize it? Because the moment I saw that, I said, "Oh, this is Annie, of course." Though of course, even you have dedicated it to her, haven't you?
Yeah, when
For
you hear that somebody keeps the whatever the royal stag for herself, and brings out the teachers and the Valentine for her friends, people started suspecting that this sounds very much like someone we know. The family cut back to the extreme.
yeah.
And then we were also then, as you get closer and closer to her, you become her, because then you also have to do the family cut back and say like, can you kind of manage with this like cheaper gin, because there are guests who needs like, I want to give them like the better gin. Is it all right? So yeah, yeah. I think it's hard to
Hmm.
talk for me about Annie. It was hard enough to write about her, but yeah, which is
Yeah.
why it's very little about Annie, but at the same time, it's
Yes.
all about Annie.
Yeah. It's very little about Annie, but the ones who knew her kind of like know her will get it
Yeah,
at
we'll get
once,
it. We'll get it.
like I
Yeah.
did. So I love these panels, Phantom. It really is so Gen X.
Yeah, it is very Gen X, because you know what? Yeah, it's unapologetically so.
Yeah.
Because it's also a history book in a sense, because it is a visual history book. It gives you all like you enter a kitchen and everything's cut and prepared for you.
Mm.
No matter what you want to cook. Just a Borges wrote about a library. I'm saying a kitchen, where no matter what you want to cook, it is just cut and chopped. Where this pumpkin is chopped and garlic is chopped and everything is chopped and ready for you. There's hing up in the this thing. You just have to like just put your head and play with fire a little bit and produce whatever you want to produce. So this book is full of these chopped bits of vegetable and meat and nuts and spices. And what you cook up in your head is your business, and
Mm.
how good a cook you are or how bad a cook you are, or cooks can't be good or bad, whatever you are. It makes people have made completely different readings of my 11-year-old friends. Shaz's son Aiden had something to say about the book. It was just the most touching thing he said.
What did he
I
say? What did he say? Because I'm like really curious. Like you said, this is completely our generation. Middle-aged people now. Okay, but I'm wondering how. young people read this. So what did he say?
It's written by a young person, and it is read by like, well, I'm not me, but it is read by young people. So Aiden, for example, I mean, this Gen Z is the group which I don't understand very well, although some of them are my students. They're bright lot. They are short circuited by, is that the word? Short changed by a pandemic.
Hmm.
They're shortchanged by a thoroughly digital universe. They're shortchanged by internet usage, which is uncontrollable. Although my father also, for older people also, it's uncontrollable. As a matter of fact, Gen Z understands internet better, and a lot of them are kind of opting out for like dumb phones and things like that, and whatever. They have a different way of thinking. The politics is very strong. The whole Palestinian politics is, a lot of it is shouldered by the Gen Z. So I'll say the good things.
Hmm.
They have enormous capacity to organize themselves also, and they can run
Yes.
organizations and do fantastic. Uh, so yes, but they've been shortchanged by history a little bit, which means they've become like a little one generation which seems very isolated from
Hmm.
other things. Um, but I have students, and they're fantastic, and nobody reads though, which is a small problem. But yes, but then comes the alpha, which is 14, 15, 16, 17, 14, 13, 12, 11.
Hmm.
Amazing group of people who are going back to reading books, cut off from mobile phones, are parented by parents who don't want, like fathers don't want want their children. Like, I want my son to be in a state of rebellion with me,
Hmm.
because I feel like India's problem is elders get a certain kind of respect that needs to be questioned and complicated. Because as you get older, you become conservative, and your
Hmm.
father cannot be then your role model. The male member of your family cannot be a role model, because you need to rebel against those conservatism that your father might have started radically, but then he would eventually end up, diabetes and right wing politics will eventually come upon them. So because of this, because of children, a lot of these kids are growing up with this discursive conversation with their parents, and conflicty conversations, but resolutions. They're kinder because they've inherited a world which they know that they have to stick together to kind of get by. And I'm really very impressed by this smaller people in the school,
Hmm.
and let's see how, and they're reading it, and I mean Gen Z is also reading it. I don't know, I am also surprised what they would find in this book that they would relate to, but I guess they would find what their parents have, where their parents have come from, or whatever older younger uncles or whatever they come from. Anyway, but it is not a book for it is not a calling out politics book, for example, which is the
Hmm.
politics, which is the main politics of Gen Z, is the calling out
Yes.
politics, which is a
Yes.
strong politics. Of course, I understand calling out Epstein files, Wim Wenders. Politics is an interesting topic of discussion right now, currently, because of the Wim Wenders situation, and um, uh, it was a really shabby answer, uh, and at the same, but I think there might have been some also miscommunication. He probably meant that all films. Actually, no, I'm just giving him too much of a. Uh, I'm being too lenient on him. Political activism. All films don't have to be political activism.
Yeah,
All
they do.
books, all comics don't have to be political
Yeah.
activism. Activists have their own limitations and problems of complicated situations and complicated human situation, and also activism can also empower a certain kind of reaction from civil society. That's all this is happening, which is much more and a novelist and a writer's job is perhaps not that. um, However, uh, so my work has not been like directly political towards my country's regime or something. Of course, but it's subliminal, and there are
Yes.
mentions of Kashmir. There are mentions of people जिनको समझ आएगा वो समझ लेगा.
हाँ.
Uh,
ऐसा
uh,
obvious होना मतलब you don't have to be ना. Because
Yeah,
when one is obvious, then it loses its power. I feel like everything becomes a pamphlet, right?
yeah, but yeah, true. But some people do it. Some people do that
Yeah.
direct hit, which
Yes.
was also required. Mota to usse
Yes.
मारना भी जरूरी है.
Uh,
And some of my colleagues are doing that. They are
mm,
they are like holding on to that, like they're in a battle situation with the authorities, and for that they're taking threats and all that kind of stuff. That's another kind of work. But for us, for me, my kind of writing, it is political, but it is not political activism, and
mm.
that also for Gen Z might be a little bit like, oh, he's not calling out anyone. He's not like, sort of like,
Mm.
there's just, yeah, it's just a unfolding of a human life kind of thing. But it's very political.
Yes, of course, it's very political. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody saying this is not political.
No, no, and it's not call out politics.
Yeah, but that of course, those are, yeah, a lot of people do it now, and I find it strident, and of course, it's necessary. Yeah, it is
Uh,
necessary, but I don't know. Sometimes I think it's also very shrill. So,
yeah,
and maybe
because
not so nuanced.
you
Yeah.
can dovetail on it, right?
Yes.
So, for
Yes.
example, there was a film on if there's a film on, say, what do you call that? There was a poster that was designed for a film on a delivery worker in Berlin. State
Mm.
of the delivery was pretty bad. Like, it's a big topic right now. How
Yes.
Indians are leaving Atmanirbhar Bharat and being delivery people, engineers even, delivery people in Berlin. तो उनका rights वगैरह के ऊपर किसी ने film बनाया देवरुण दत्ता और उसका पोस्टर जब बना तो द पोस्टर में देख पीछे freedom for Palestine or solidarity was kept, right? The design of the poster. And then somebody said that you ye kis kyun laga rahe ho? In Germany anyway, kind of a thing. And there was a bit of a debate that, does do we have to conflate? Is the fact that it is about delivery workers not enough that you also want to put a save the Palestine or sort of a, a pro Palestine message? Yes, I mean people are wearing a fire so your politics is kind of understood, but where do you want to like put it, how much you want to put it, whether you want to like put it for everything that you do, these are some of the questions that needs to be worked out.
Mm. So when you were writing this, what were the? Of course, you were thinking of many things, but the things that you can remember, you know, stuff
Sorry,
like
sorry, I didn't
this.
get the
What were
question.
the things that you were constantly thinking about? The at the background. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh my God, Manjula, the process of writing this book is just so haunting. It is
Mm.
so haunting that you sort of drawn like 4 pages on um, uh, it's not, it hasn't found its place in the book, but an afternoon spent at Firozshah Kotla
Mm.
in search of jinns, and you spend 2 or 3 days working on it non-stop, working, throwing, and then you step out to a completely different geography. Suddenly you feel like you're in some kind of a trance or some kind of a hallucinatory sort of an effect. So you go so deep into your memory while writing the book. The pleasure of the book of sustaining, comics, you spend like you time barbad, so much time is spent. You can earn a lot of money while you're doing this comics and you get like whatever advance, which barely pays your whatever rent for like 4 months, but
Mm.
maybe a little longer. But the thing is, but you still keep on doing it. Why? What is the intention? Why is the motivation of doing something like that? You have to ask these questions at some point, in your life. What is an adult man doing, like spending when they have to earn a living and also have a child and stuff like that. Comics is financially a disaster to write comics.
Mm.
Mm, so you have to make it worthwhile, the process. If there's no pleasure in the process of, and this deep snorkeling, they deep scuba dive into that world and kind of living through that world, is so rewarding. It gives so much mental strength,
Mm.
mental health, even uh, keeps you very stable. I'm absolutely devoid of depression. Knock on wood. I don't have. I have low moods, but I'm not depressed, and I have not been to therapy ever. Not I'm not bragging, but I'm not saying that people who go to therapy are somehow like, a lot of people are. Everybody, the world is currently like, ripe for therapy. Everybody needs day-to-day therapy, and so the safe thing would be to say that this has been my therapy. This has been my process of healing from this world, which I just want to shut out in most cases, especially the two countries that I inhabit. Sometimes you just do feel like you need to really shut yourself out from what is happening. And it is a privileged position to be so, because I don't have to go out and look for, meet terrible people for work. Currently, I don't have to, but I want to protect myself from this over
Mm.
optimized world, optimized for a future that is never going to come.
So I love the how you kind of bring a sense of the place without really hitting you on the head with it, like the Pakistan section. When you're walking, obviously, then you get the sense that everybody is paranoid of the outside. It's almost like Gurgaon's gated
Yeah, yeah,
communities.
yeah,
Huh?
yeah,
So you
yeah,
want
yeah.
to talk about that? That really struck me. People saying that you'll be safe if you, and then you have to dress in a certain way, and so that you can mingle or whatever. And I never thought of that at all. So you want to talk about that?
I'll tell you this with a little story. So my ex-wife used to have a Volkswagen, and I can't drive. She drove us around in Karachi, and in Karachi, everybody drinks a lot in
Oh.
parties, and you move from one party to another party. Not very different from Delhi or Bombay. We're like, just generally people are having a life is just one like big party. काम भी होता है वो पार्टी के बीच बीच में. People are doing composing songs, doing serials, and all kind of. There's no like sort of this is a general celebration kind of. At least the years that we were there, there was less money, but there were all these sort of things happening. And then that time the Karachi threat was that वो वहाँ पे there are hold ups in traffic jams where people would come in a shawl and says that मोबाइल फोन मेहरबानी मोबाइल फोन दे दीजिए or something like that.
मेहरबानी मोबाइल होती है.
And the hand would be like this. You don't know what's behind whatever. So you just generally, so there are a lot of mobile phone snatchings and robbery. So anyway, we drove to this party, and I drank quite a bit, and suddenly after several drinks, I realized that I kind of know some of these faces, but I've never seen these people before. They're like completely new for me, and I was talking to these people, and I was just generally. My ex-wife was introducing me as like a comic book writer from, so there was the general excitement, and some people have heard of Corridor, I think. Um, so we were talking, and then suddenly, and I was by then very drunk and almost like about to like pass out. And then I was suddenly having a conversation with someone, and an older gentleman, and in my drunken clarity, I realized I was talking to Dr. Ahmed, as in Rahat Kasvi of Dhoop Kinare. And that whole cast is Dhoop Kinare's cast. Older, Marina is older, everyone. And I was like, I passed out. And then my poor girlfriend had to carry me literally on her shoulder like Parvati back to the Volkswagen, back to home, and then sneak me in so that nobody in the house knows that I'm like fully drunk. But there are like lots of people who work, lots of people who work. So, um, uh, like every city, Karachi is also a city which is a human. Like all cities are human. People are human beings are cities, and cities are human beings.
Hmm.
Uh, and Karachi also behaves like a human person. Liari aaj garam hai. Matlab, Liari is something that all of us knew, huh? Not this film is just taking advantage of like a collective memory of all that stuff. But of course, a complete wrong representation of the workplace nonsense. Because
Hmm.
Liari is a very rich, fantastic neighborhood with football clubs and Gadegari races, Makrani community, which is the African community, to
Hmm.
several types of Baloch music. शिया लोगों का जुलूस निकलता है वहां से खारा दर से. Yeah, it is a bit rough. And um, so in order to go to the beach, you have to cross Liari, right? Or
Okay.
go not very far from Liari, you have to like it. And people would say like Liari aaj garam, and
Hmm.
there was a chill in that.
Hmm.
Or every neighborhood behaved like all South Asian cities. Every neighborhood had very specific personalities. Tariq Road had a very specific. Burns Road ka halwa puri had a very different significance. This is the whole joys of like specificities. वो Paris में, uh, France में specificities are like you've gone from one vineyard to another vineyard, crossed a lilac patch, which is like what, seven lilac bushes, and you entered another vineyard, and then they say that it's famous for its lilac smelling wine because of that char lilac that was like, and how it is different from the other one which has a cranberry taste, in their wine. So basically what I'm saying is that specificity and stories are very linked, and food is all about stories. Wine is like a big story. You drink the
Hmm.
wine, your taste is affected, I feel. Controversial statement is that your brain works on the story, kind of gives signals to your tongue, and then therefore like the wine tasting kind of becomes, okay, this is amazing wine, this is this. Partially. So similarly, South Asian cities are like all about specificities. And those specificities, at least in my time, you could only understand by walking through those cities.
Hmm.
Jodhpur, how Jodhpur becomes in the evening. And of course, Invisible City talks about how all the specificities of Venice comes out in through different cities by Marco Polo. Similarly, our cities behave very differently, different parts of the day, different time. And sometimes, Karachi is closest to Bombay. Sometimes it's nearest to, like, furthest away from Pakistan that you can think of. So one has to be sensitive to these places. And I'm a writer of place mostly.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was fortunate that in Karachi I could walk. And some of it is talked about. Some of those walks are in the book, but um, it is through these kind of chance encounters, that you kind of start thinking that this city is an encyclopedia of characters, places, people,
Hmm.
places, objects, which like the sort of tamchinika pot, which you
Hmm.
for making tea,
Hmm.
or the ajrak that you see everywhere,
Yes.
or दूध की दुकान.
Hmm.
Like random दूध की दुकान. Like you just have like thickened milk. Uh, so not even this doodh jalebi kind of, Rajasthan. So these are the joys, absolute pleasures, and I don't have any other pleasure. I don't have money, so I can't have like lobsters and eat at Michelin restaurant. Fly somewhere. I don't have access to too many like all these rich pleasures. This is my pleasure. It's completely free.
Okay. And the thing about the father son bits, they were really touching. I mean, I had to at some point, when I was like going through it. And it's not that, again, it's not like you're hitting me on the head with it, but I had to keep it aside and think and feel like sort of, it was, I don't know, it's very, you want to talk about that?
Somebody just said that chalo koi to father son likha because everything's all about mother these days. Personally, as a Bengali boy, I'm also closer to my mother. It's only now that my father is going through a bad time that I'm actually got suddenly very close to him and realize how much I'm like him. Uncanny. But I've always been close to my mother. Father son relationships have changed because father is not an authority or a tax advisor anymore. Especially or someone who brings the news to you, the world news, or tells you how to think about certain political parties, or tells you which career to choose, and later on like also even chooses like the who's going to be a life partner and stuff like that. The fathers have changed completely from that generation. I'm not saying for good or bad. Fathers were much more protective, more financially secure. Like my father was, whatever, worked in the bank. That's why I'm a comic book writer. You know, he didn't understand, still doesn't what I do much, but always provided the raw material and the financial resources to produce that, which is much more important than like having a highly encouraging father who's very poor.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? But poor
Yeah.
Miru has found a father who's opposite to his grandfather. But luckily, Lisa has a grandfather, so he has those needs taken care of as well. Whose father is constantly like in financial distress and relationship distress, and he was separated. We separated when he was one, but it was a good separation, and we decided that 3 days he would stay when he got a bit older. 3 days he would stay with me, and four nights he would stay with Bunny. And so we were quite sort of, and we did a good job of raising him and continue to do so. Um, but the thing is that what is we wanted um, uh, I like the idea to be a single father raising a child
Mm,
because it's not about control or anything. I just like that quality time. I'm not a big family, like family as a unit is not something that I'm kind of keen on. Although I come from a very steady family unit,
mm,
I like that because relationship with your child is also a romantic relationship,
mm,
and there are images and thoughts like say 5 days spent in an island in Greece amplifies in your head as the person grows older, and he's growing very fast. You can hear him grow,
mm,
uh, and uh, and also because the father has stopped being a parental authority or authoritarian person. Yes, you're financially dependent on the person, and for other things there are conversations that you have with 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, which you never had previously before. And even with a child, with a son, also men have changed,
mm.
because I was petrified that I'm having a son. As in the book somebody says that we are sinners, we can only have son. But I have a child who is who wants to do tailoring. So I told him that just learn how to make blouse and petticoat, and only from your grandmother's friends you'll have enough business to kind of uh, so so he so we are trying to get a ustadji to teach him how to like do the cut, because he knows that cutting is the most important thing, because
Yeah.
every good fashion designer knows how to cut. So we are going to put him with someone like some tailor, like some master ji who's going to teach him, and we know someone who can do it from
Mm,
Sindh. So it's a place of enjoyment, it's entertainment, it's conversation. He's talking about like uh, things that are happening with families of friends, families who are splitting up, whatever. He's talking candidly with me, and these are all very powerful things, bonding that a child. And I don't know how this is going to go. Currently it works, and we are all prepared that at some point in time he's going to leave. He's going to fully leave us. He's going already. It has started at age 13. He has his own circle of friends. Roams around the city of Berlin, like Salim Langre pe mat roka Salim Langra. He's a local kid. He's a Mohajir kid in Karachi. Like a young Altaf Hussain type character who knows the back ends of Karachi. But in Karachi, he's kind of moving from protected spaces to protected spaces. In Calcutta, he walks around the streets of North Calcutta as if his grandfather owned a homeopathy shop in Nimtala Ghat Street. In Berlin, he's a Neukölln kid who wears a keffaya. These are
oh,
these are the bachas that we are creating. In this new generation who have no difference of like people. Even class, they'll call you out for like being classist or
mm,
stuff like
mm.
that. Um, so I'm really kind of quite surprised that ऐसे बच्चे आ रहे हैं अब जो नए, and there'll be more Mamdanis, more of these kind of characters who are like products of these children, who've kind of broken those little narrow identities and stuff like that, yet strongly sort of, identity oriented as well. There's a strong Shia
Mm,
identity, there's a strong Durga Puja identity, all very
mm.
comfortable, and not also don't say things like that, oh, I'm an atheist, I don't believe, I'm a rationalist and all that, which is an older conversation.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm happy the way he's growing up, kind mostly.
Mm, mm. Okay. So, I mean, we could go on talking, but we have to end. So, I will ask you another, like a general question. Are you working on something now, or like you're giving yourself space, or what? Have you started?
um, um, I have to work for a living. There's
Alas.
no, yeah, there's no, like, you are a jobber, I'm a job. Like, so I have to keep on teaching to make some money, to survive.
Hmm.
And because comics is not such a big ticket thing, it's not the art world. I have a solo coming up in October. Hopefully, we make some sale. The work that was in Berlin Biennale is going to come and shown in India for
You
the
know,
first
something
time.
like this, just this panel which I saw inside, I mean, I'd love to have it on my wall, yeah. It's like such a beautiful
Yeah, I mean,
space.
I get to hear that every some now and then. Only problem is that kind of collectors or that kind of buyers are diminishing.
Oh,
Now the art world is controlled by a very different kind of people. If you go to the Delhi Art Fair, it does look a
yeah.
little bit like grand and decorative, and on the other side it's conceptual and western, dicks
Yes.
by the west, so
Yes.
complicated and so discursive that there's no, like, you don't feel any pleasure. It's some kind of a whatever. And the other one is so decorative that you can get interior decorator to get it done. And there's a lot of objects which are made, like
Yes.
sculptural stuff, which is like Devi ka extension.
Hmm.
So anything that was funny, witty, or a drawing and stuff like that, perhaps this generation doesn't want. So one has to resort to the fact that yes, I'm going to have a show. Yes, my work is going to be there, but I'm not sure about the collector type people. Which is why I'm so happy that I have comics. At least people can buy my books, if
Yeah.
not the work. So I'll have a show in October, but I am now getting more interested in, like, the next level, because I've written a book like that. I don't foresee myself writing another comic book, not ever, but for a while. uh, so I want to get into more like other things like Chinese theater to kind of make the my work. I feel like I've reached a glass ceiling. To feel vulnerable once again. Chinese opera, Chinese theater, I'm very interested in to kind of explore deeper, not learn, but explore deeper into it. Kabuki, which is something that I've always been very interested in. If I get money, I'll go back to Japan. I've lived in Japan for short periods. Kabuki theater, and a lot of Indian classical music. Maybe do a course on that, which will, for its own pleasure, and also kind of get a more comprehensive and interesting conversation about comics, which can be more like talk from a musical point of view than either literary or cinematic or art point of view, because we don't comic book writers don't belong to any of these worlds. We don't
Hmm.
belong to the world of literature. We're outside that world. We don't belong to any of the structural aspects of literature, like literary prizes or literary commissions and all that. We can't access those. Same with art. Our work is not for the art, like, market, because art market wants something else. Neither we from cinema. So we have to make our own world, and we know how to be this sort of, it's a queering, I suppose. It's a queer medium in that sense. It does not belong anywhere. We don't even belong to the comic book world, because there's a
Yes.
mainstream comic book world, which is Comic
Hmm.
Con and whatever. They That's another fan, whatever, cosplay kind of a situation. So we are completely by ourselves, very small group of people, but that's okay. Life in an oil rig, waves everywhere.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, great. And on that note, we'll end. For the listeners and viewers, go out and get Sarnath Banerjee's Absolute Jafar. It's deep. Yeah, it made me think a lot. It made me, nostalgic also and wonder, what's happening with the world and what will come and about personal relationships and everything. So I really like this book. So thank you so much for talking to me, Sarnath.
I'm muted,
Ari? I said thank you so much for talking to me.
but I'm muted. Can you hear me? Oh,
Of
you
course
can hear
I
me.
hear you.
Sorry, sorry, sorry.
Were you
I
embarrassed
was,
that I
I
said
was,
that?
I think what I meant was more poetically was I'm wordless.
Ah.
Wait, I'm speechless. Thank you so much for a absolutely amazing conversation, because it is through these conversations you kind of look at the work again. Things that you are when you're working, you are like at a speed you'd never really reflect back on your work. There might be other people who look at their work like that. But we don't. We just sort of finish it, like mix everything. So these conversations so important, so intuitive, and sort of gets in. So thank you so much for that, and have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye.